Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. I'm here to do a response video to a friend of mine, Ian Mountford, whose YouTube name is Forkerball. And Ian and I go back a long way. He's one of my first friends on YouTube that when I started communicating with people who collected films and reviewed them and all that sort of thing. So we go back a long way. And Ian and I, we probably agree about half the time, and the rest of the time we agree to disagree about films we like or don't like. Anyway, he brought up a topic that he suggested for a community conversation, community chat, which is something we used to do back in the day, almost every week. And it's kind of an interesting idea. It's very simple, really. He wants to know, how do we decide what makes a great film? Is it something that is totally subjective, or is it something that we sort of take in more from an objective opinion from someone else? Critics, top 25 lists from the American Film Institute, other people on YouTube, etc., that sort of thing. And also, do we have to like a film in order to appreciate it and see that as being a great film, or even a good film? Okay. And the second part to his question is about using a rating system of numbers 1 to 10, or a star rating, 5 stars, and how do we decide how, what films deserve to have the highest rating. And I'll answer that part first, because I actually don't use any kind of a numbered rating system or a star rating system either on YouTube or on my blog when I do a review. The only time I use the star system is on my letterbox page, simply because it's right there on the page, so I do it. And I do pay attention to star ratings and number ratings. I have a shelf full of books by Roger Ebert, one of my favorite critics, and of course he uses is it a 4 or 5 star rating, and I always pay attention to what a critic has at the top of his review. It sort of gives you an indication of what he thought about the film even before we start reading. If it's only 2 stars, he didn't like it very much. If it's up to 5, then okay. So yeah, it's not something that I do, but I do pay attention to other people's ratings. Now, as far as what a great film is, Ian brought up 2 examples in his discussion. He brought up Gone with the Wind and Chinatown, 2 very highly regarded films, both of which I guess you would call classics. Now, he didn't like, he doesn't care for either one of them, right? He doesn't hate them, but he doesn't really like them. They're not films he likes to watch. So, in my opinion, I absolutely love Chinatown. I love everything about it. I would call it a perfect film, and I can watch it again and again and just be carried away by the photography and the weirdness of the story and all the good performances. I really love it. So certainly, I would call that a great film and a classic, objectively speaking and subjectively. Now, when it comes to Gone with the Wind, I like it. I've seen it several times. I objectively see it as being a great film, very important in cinematic history and all this sort of thing. But it's not one of my favorites, and it's not something that I go back to because I just really love to curl up on the couch and watch Gone with the Wind. I actually think that the character of Scarlett O'Hara is probably the most unlikable, irritating female characters in all of cinema history. I just, you know, even though I love Vivian Lee and she does a great job playing that character, it's not a character that I like. And I'm glad that she's left high and dry at the end. She deserved it. So much for that. So I would say that a lot of us who consider ourselves to be cinephiles, if that's sort of a pretentious expression, some of us are more pretentious than others, obviously. I'll put myself at the top of that list. But I think if we want to be considered a cinephile, a legitimate film fan, then we almost feel obligated to like certain films or to put them on a list of the greatest films ever made. Now, I've been making these lists of my top 25 films from certain years, and I'm preparing to do one for the 1940s. I'm just very lazy about it. And people ask me, well, why didn't you include this or that? Because it's such a great film. And I always make the point, these are films that I love and that I love to go back to, not necessarily the greatest, objectively greatest films ever made, because I kind of separate the two. So it's all subjective. You love what you love. You appreciate what you appreciate. There are some films that I do acknowledge as being great, and I have to say that I was very impressed by them, but I would never really want to see them again. One of them is Saving Private Ryan, which I've talked about before, and it was an incredibly moving film, but I don't think I ever want to watch it again. It was too heavy an experience. Another one is There Will Be Blood. Okay, I went to see that a couple of years after it was released. I was kind of late to the party for that film, and it was a very impressive, riveting film. And yeah, I can't say I enjoyed it, but I was very, very moved by it. But I don't think I ever want to see it again. Okay, now I have to acknowledge that a lot of my friends on YouTube, a lot of people that I know and have great respect for, we disagree about certain things. And I seem to be living in a world where everybody loves No Country for Old Men, right? That's a film that I've watched twice, and I admit that I do not get it. I specifically watched it the second time because I wanted to get what everybody else was getting, and I just don't like the movie at all. Even though it has some great actors, I love Tommy Lee Jones, some good scenes here and there, but it just didn't work for me. And that's just the way it is. It's all subjective. But I understand that a lot of people put that on their top 10, top 25 list, and that's fine. I objectively speaking, I guess that's a great film. Another film that almost everybody feels obligated to put on their list would be Citizen Kane, which is a film that I do like very much, and I like it more every time I see it. But again, it's not one of my favorite comfort films where I just want to spend an evening with rum and coke watching Citizen Kane. Maybe maybe someday I'll reach that point. And of course, our feelings change as time goes on. I remember that here are a couple of films that when I first saw them in the theater years ago, I hated, absolutely hated. And now, many years later, I decided to give them a second chance with my older brain, and I fell in love with them. And one of them is Paris, Texas, which I just absolutely just hated when I saw it in the theater. I thought it was, oh, I don't know what to say. But now I'm entranced by it. Another film that I hated very much was Leaving Las Vegas. And I picked up this DVD a few years ago because it was cheap at Big Lots. That's why I picked it up. I thought, okay, let's watch this again, see what we think. And I thought it was terrific. And I guess I just had to get older and more mature in order to appreciate it. There were a lot of films like that. There are also films that I used to regard as being classics that I don't care for anymore. One of them is Inherit the Wind from 1960. Frederick March, Spencer Tracy, and Gene Kelly, based on true incidents. I used to watch this on TV all the time when I was growing up, 60s and 70s, and just thought, wow, this is a very moving, powerful story. So I watched it again all these years later. I picked up this cheap copy, used copy, and it just seems very hollow and pretentious, and it has agenda written all over it, and I just didn't enjoy it very much. I'll watch it again, maybe I'll like it. Another film that everybody regards as one of the greatest ever made, and I feel almost guilty for not liking it, is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which I remember seeing this on TV way, way back in the 60s and not remembering it very well. I suppose I liked it then. And then maybe about 10 years ago, this was playing at a local theater being revived. So I went to see it, and I walked out. I just thought it was irritating and boring, and Ethel Merman was driving me crazy. So why did I end up picking up this cheap copy at Big Lots not long ago? It was cheap. I just thought, okay, Mike, pick this up. It's $5. I'll watch it again sometime. Maybe I will change my opinion. It's possible. It's got some great people in it. So in a sense, it is kind of a classic just because it has all these great comedians in it. But Yeah, it just didn't do much for me. Some of the films which I love to watch, and to me they are classics. Certainly, All About Eve, I can watch again and again and again, and it is a classic film. It's objectively speaking, almost everyone would say this is a classic film. One of my comfort films, which I would not say is a classic film in any way, but I can watch this more than any other movie in my collection and always enjoy it, always have a good time, and that is The Bat. Vincent Price, Agnes Moorehead. I just have the best time. I know every line in this film, everything that's going to happen, but I still just get pulled into it. So anyway, now that I've shown you this, you probably will change your opinion of me. I don't know. Anyway, that's my response. So if anybody wants to join in, how do you decide what is a great film, what is a classic film? Is it all subjective, or do you pay attention to what's on the famous lists? Do you pay attention to critics before you decide if something is a great film? So I think we all have a tendency to do that and pay attention to what other people think. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's the way you learn. That's the way you expand your experience, by listening to what other people say. Okay? All right. Thanks for watching. Comments are welcome.